Okay, welcome back. So now we shift perspective one more time, and we go to the tea factory itself. Amina. Amina is the distribution and marketing director for Tere Tata. Her job is to market and sell as much tea from her company as possible. But Tere Tata is not a huge industrial company. It's known for quality over quantity. Amina generally sells around 4 truckloads of tea per week to distributors like Q Enterprises. In week 6, way back in week 6, new orders for Tere Tata start rising dramatically from 4 to 40 truckloads. A 10x increase. Amina doesn't know why, but thinks it must be because, she's good at her job and her marketing genius is finally paying off. Amina wants to satisfy the demand for 40 truckloads, but needs some time to increase production. She can't just flip a switch. So she needs some time to hire more people and increase production. So she ships 30 truckloads out of the 40 ordered and gives IOUs for the rest. This is why Ikram was getting these strange numbers of like 5 and 7 boxes. She's excited and wants to be ready for this explosion in new demand. So she asks her team to increase production to 70 truckloads. The factory gets busy hiring new people, working as fast as they can. Lots of good buzz. Everyone's really excited. This is their big moment. And then, by week 16, Amina has finally caught up with her backlog of orders. She's relieved that she's finally meeting the demand for their amazing tea. But then, orders from her distributors in week 17 fall to only 19 truckloads. By week 18, new orders have fallen to 0. By week 19, factory inventory has grown to 100 truckloads. Amina thinks, those kids, they loved us, and now they must have moved on. Boy, I really hate young people today. So, what do you think happened? You see this very unwelcome, unhappy pattern, even though everybody individually seems to have been acting reasonably based on what they saw. So, how do you explain this? Amina goes on a visit. She goes to see Karim. It's the first time they've met in person. She goes to her distributor, Q Enterprises. And she says to Karim, hey, we still have 220 truckloads. You agree this is the kids' fault. If only the retailers had kept you both better informed. Then she goes to see Ikram at her shop. Ikram shows her inventory books and says, I was so angry with you guys a few months ago. And she points to her back room. I still have 93 boxes back there. She pours Amina a nice cup of tea. Ikram explains, we were selling 4 boxes a week, every week, until that TikTok video came out. The next week, we sold 8 boxes. Amina jumps in, and then demand exploded. But why did it suddenly die down? Ikram replies, you don't understand. Demand never exploded, and it never died down. We still sell 8 boxes every week. You just didn't send us the tea on time, so I had to keep ordering more. So now you see how this story played out. This game is based on a game created at MIT called the Beer Game. It has now been adapted to Moroccan culture as the tea game. Peter Senge, professor of systems dynamics at MIT, and he writes about this game in his book, The Fifth Discipline. And he writes, having run the game thousands of times with students, with teachers, with business leaders, playing these 3 roles of the shop owner, the distributor, and the factory. And almost always, you get this same boom and bust effect that you see here. And Peter Senge says, people in the business world love heroes. When something goes wrong, someone must have screwed up. But in the beer game, no one is to blame. The systems perspective tells us that we must look beyond individual mistakes or bad luck to understand important problems. We must look beyond personalities and single events. We must look into the underlying structures which shape individual actions and create the conditions where certain types of events become likely. And you begin to see that the system causes its own behavior, meaning the structure of the system, the way the system is built and interacts, is what causes this behavior. The T game, we call the T game, provides a laboratory for exploring how the structure of the system influences behavior. Each player makes one decision per week, how much tea to order. The retailer increases orders, but the tea doesn't arrive on time because of delays at distributor and factory. So the retailer increases orders even faster. And this sudden jump from ordering 8 to ordering 12 to ordering 16, this jump gets amplified through the system. The result is a characteristic pattern of boom and bust that gets worse as you go upstream from the retailer to the distributor, from the distributor to the factory. And this happens, it gets worse, even though demand at the store by the consumers is stable. So it goes from 4 to 8 boxes and doesn't change after that. You still get this terrible boom and bust effect. When they stop blaming each other, players often blame the system itself, as if there was nothing they could do about it. So how do you win this game? If you're one of these players, how would you play it better so that you don't have this boom and bust? Well, one option would be what he calls the no strategy strategy. So simply place new orders equal to the orders you receive. You never totally eliminate the backlog, but it dramatically reduces the boom and bust effect. So that's one. And this would give you results better than 3/4 of all people who have played this game. The no strategy strategy. Then, the very best players of this game employ what Senga calls the don't panic strategy. So contain the urge to increase orders quickly, which makes it impossible to totally eliminate boom and bust, but this kind of go slowly approach. Instead of reacting and making an extreme change in your order, waiting and adjusting more slowly can lower costs by an additional 80% from the no strategy strategy. So you see here that the 3 players in the game only see a limited part of the system. And there's this part over here of the supplier's inventory that is invisible to them. So you see how many orders we place, you see how much arrives of our tea, and there's this delay. And this delay is a key part of the problem. So you only see this one part of the system. You don't see what's happening at the supplier. And so for you, in your local view of things, the problem is somewhere else. It's somewhere external to your own choices. You're doing everything in the right way, and the problem is somewhere else. What Senga says is the best players redefine their scope of influence. Instead of saying, well, I can only control what happens here, they see the whole system and say, actually, what I'm doing has an effect on their reaction and their response. And if I panic and double my order and triple my order, that could have a even bigger effect on how they react over at the supplier. So part of the challenge is learning how to see and understand the dynamics of the entire system. So what are the lessons from the T game? So lesson number 1, structure influences behavior. So more often than we realize, systems, the way systems are organized, are the cause of their own crises, not external forces and not the mistakes or bad intentions of individual actors in the system. It's the structure of the system that is really at the root of how the system behaves. And that this structure is often not what it looks to the individual actors. It can be counterintuitive. And so because it's counterintuitive, when we respond to problems, we often produce the opposite effect of what we intend. We're trying to solve the problem by getting ahead of it, ordering more tea, and it actually makes the problem worse. And to each individual actor, it's not obvious why this is happening. And sometimes when you're being proactive and trying to get ahead of the problem, you're making it much worse. So system structure can be counter to our intuitions. And finally, that leverage, meaning how we can positively influence and change the system, often comes from new ways of thinking. Not just getting more tea or increasing the time to get the tea to the supplier, but thinking differently about the structure of the system. And so Senga says when we can identify the structure of the system, we can map it, we can often find better ways of producing an intelligent outcome that benefits everyone. So in our next video, we're going to get into some of these concepts of how we create a good map of a complex system.